Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a yet another dupe video. We are going to dupe the vibes of the newest Bella Beaute Bar Ultraviolet Palette. You know how much I love my purples, and purple eyeshadow palette definitely makes me fall weak on my knees. I really love a purple palette, and I feel like this palette was curated with so much of thought in the mind. It can work for a lighter skin tone, medium skin tone, deeper skin tone. And Deandra Nicole, if you're not following her, you should definitely follow. I'll put every details in the description box below for you guys. I feel like she absolutely killed it and knocked it out of the ballpark with this purple palette. I cannot imagine a better purple palette in my collection. I really love it. I definitely wanted it with me, but I did order the Dead Roses palette just because I feel like variety and the shiftiness of those multi-chromes was making me drool worthy. But I was not ready for a purple palette to come in my collection, especially when you know how much I love my purples and I have a lot of purple palettes with me. So I definitely wanted to shout out a few purple palettes before we dupe shade by shade, because I won't be using those purple palettes, but you definitely can get a similar vibe with those palettes. Now, if you were eyeing that palette for the mattes, Sugar Drizzle has a beautiful mattes palette, and this is a purple palette, predominantly a purple palette. You can get everything that palette has, like for the mattes in this. Now again, if you are buying that palette for the shimmers, obviously this is just a matte palette. But if you're buying that palette for the variety of the mattes of the purples that are there, this palette is amazing. The quality is stunning, absolutely stunning. So I definitely wanted to talk about this. And also, if you want like a similar purple vibe, similar kind of a purple look on your eyes, if you have the Norvina 5 palette, you know how beautiful this palette is. This will also serve your cravings. It definitely has those like warm tone purple, like a mid-tone purple, but it also has variety with those like neutral everyday shades too. But if you're looking for that shiftiness, sparkliness, this would not give that to you. Okay, now let's begin duping the vibes of the palette. Let me also give you a disclaimer. I basically use 3 palettes from my collection. I use the Glaminatrix Cosmetics Rich Romantic palette. I also use Bella Beaute Bar Bejeweled palette. And certainly, last not the least, Lands of Enchantment palette by Ensley Rain Cosmetics. I feel like if you do have these 3 palettes in your collection, you definitely can dupe the vibes. Let's begin. Also, the look that you're seeing on me, I'll post it towards the end of the video. If you want to recreate this look, I use these dupe shades. So let's begin. Let's start off with the first row. We'll go row by row. The first row is the most captivating row for me. So let's begin. The first shade was called Magical, and this was duped by the Glaminatrix Cosmetics Rich Romantic palette. And the shade that duped with is this, which is called Captivating. It's a beautiful, sparkly, like a pinky shade. Very sparkly, very dimensional. Look at that. It's a beautiful baby pink shade, but it has like a slight hint of green to it. But on the eyes, it basically looks like a baby pink with a lot of sparkliness. So that's the shade Captivating, which dupes Magical. The next shade is called Serenity, and this is duped by the Lands of Enchantment palette. And this is like a pastel lavender shade, a beautiful transitioning shade for me. And this is the shade that we are duping it with, this one. And this is called Enlightened. Oh, this palette is stunning. So that's the second shade. The next shade is called Spiritual, and this one is also duped from the Rich Romantic palette, and the shade is called Rich. This is a purple, pinky purple base with a strong green shifting shade. So let's swatch that. You can see that purple in the palette, like in the pan, but can you also see that green shift coming through? You'll definitely see it when I swatch. Stunning it is. Look at that. Now this is definitely a multi-chrome. I think Deandra's palette only has like a bunch of duochromes and mattes in it. But this definitely is a little bit more elevated and my version to it. Really, really pretty. The next shade is called Peace, which is also being duped by the Rich Romantic palette. And the shade that we are duping it with is called Cherish. This one, a mid-tone purple shade. So let's take that. It's like a muted purple shade. And I'll show you side-by-side swatches of Nupur from Instagram too. She does amazing swatches and I referred her swatch to dupe my palette. So I'll definitely leave her details also in the description box below for you guys. But as soon as we finish off one row, I'll compare my swatches with her. The last shade in that row is called Rarity. And this shade is definitely the most kapow shade in the palette. And I had to go out of these palettes and just pick my single shade. And this was Terra Moon's Chasing Comets. So let me swatch this. It's like a beautiful, like a mid-tone purple that shifts to like a blue and a green. You've seen me use this shade a lot of times in my on my channel. So that is the first row swatched for you guys. Now let me put it here and I'll show you Nupur's swatches on the side. Really, really pretty. Love, love, love this palette. Okay, now let's move on to the second row. Now the first shade in the second row is called Exotic, and this is a hot pink kind of shade, and this is Dupe from the Bejeweled palette from Bella Beaute Bar. And this palette was sent to me in PR actually. This is the only palette that was sent to me in PR from Bella Beaute Bar. The rest of the palettes has also been sent to me in PR. The Rich Romantic palette as well as the Lands of Enchantment palette. On all the website, Glaminatrix, Ensley Rain Cosmetics and Bella Beaute Bar, you can use the code SMITHYSONY to save 10% off. But let's move on to the next row. Pink Tourmaline is like a mid-tone hot pink kind of shade, this one. And that's what I'm duping the shade Exotic with. So let's swatch that. Stunning shade it is. Definitely has a little bit of purple, but a lot of pink to it, like a magenta pink. Now the next shade is called Imagination, and Imagination is being duped by the shade called Cosmic Flow from the Lands of Enchantment palette. This one, it's such a beautiful shimmer shade, and it's like a pink, but it also shifts to like a bronzy shade. Really, really pretty. Both of these two shades together will be stunning. If you have Lands of Enchantment palette, I mean, you know. Look at that. Stunning, stunning. The next shade is called Royalty, and this is also duped from the Rich Romantic palette. And the shade is called Intimate. This one, it's like a deeper purple shade, but like with a lot of warmth in it. So let's take that. There you go. Such a stunning shade. Really, really pretty. I've used the shade on my eyes today, so you'll see it in action. Okay, let's move on to the next shade. The next shade is called Creativity, and this is the shade that I did not take any of these palettes for, but you will have a shade in your collection. If you love eyeshadow palettes, you'll definitely have the shade. I'll tell you two of the palettes that I could find that shade from. If you have the Adept Cosmetics and Heather Austin palette, it has a shade called Passport, which is that pink to a blue shifting shade. That will be an amazing shade. Dupe. If you have the Gourmand Girls Haunted palette, it has a beautiful shade which is called Jinxed, this one, which is also that pink to a blue shifting shade. So let's watch it. This is definitely not like a unique shade in the collection if you love eyeshadow palettes. There you go. Really, really pretty. But also if you want like that pink to a blue shifting shade, Lands of Enchantment has the shade Earth Light, this shade. This one, which is like a pink to a blue shifting shade, but this is definitely much more special because it has that holochrome particles running throughout it. So I definitely wanted to use something else. Okay, the last shade in that row is called Nobility, and this has been duped by the shade called Amethyst from the Bejeweled palette. And this is like a mid-tone purple shade, like a true purple shade, this one. So let's watch that. There you go. And that is the second row swatched for you guys, or duped for you guys. Let me also keep it here so that I can show it against Nupur's swatches so that you can compare. There might be a slight difference here and there, but nothing much, especially on the eyes, nothing much. Okay, now let's move on to the third row. Okay, the first shade in the third row is called Mystery, and this I have duped with the Opal shade from the Bejeweled palette. Now, I feel like it's a little different than this, but again, you can get that bluey effect. It's like a purple to a blue shifting shade with a lot of blue in it. I couldn't find like an exact dupe from this palette, but you'll get that gist when you see the shade in action. So you can see that desperate blue, but you also can see that purple. And I feel like there's a lot of purple in Deandra's palette, and that shifts to a blue, but this I feel like it's like an equal shift happening for blue and purple. So yeah, excuse me, but I feel like this is the closest that I could get from these palettes. The next shade is called Powerful, and Powerful is duped actually from the Rich Romantic palette. I mixed two of the shades just to get an exact dupe. I mixed Intimate and Lover together because it has like some kind of a quality of a burgundiness to it, but again, it's more of like a warm purple shade. So I'm gonna just swatch both of these and then swatch it together. There you go. Like a deep maroony purple shade. You know what else? Actually, I thought about this right now. I have the Primal palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. The purpley shades in that palette, like the mattes in that palette, would be amazing to dupe this palette too. Should have thought about it a little earlier. Okay, let's move on to the next shade. The next shade is called Extravagance, and this shade is being duped by the shade called Starseed from the Lands of Enchantment palette. Now this is a blue to a purple shifting shade, and that is like a predominant blue in the palette, in her palette too. I wanted to use this shade too, but this was like such a special shade with like holochromes in it. I thought of just using this one then. So this is definitely a blue to a purple shifting shade, but her palette definitely has that UV quality to it. We'll see. There you go. This is definitely like more blue on your face, okay? Okay, let's move on. The next shade is called Balance, and Balance has been duped by another shade from Bejeweled palette, and the shade is called Chariot, and this is like the deepest shade in that palette. This one is like a deep eggplanty shade, this one. So let's watch that. Definitely would deepen out any outer corners of any skin tone. So there you go. That's Chariot from Bejeweled palette. And last, certainly not the least, we have the shade called Luxury, and this has also been duped by the Bejeweled palette, and the shade that dupes it is called Kunzite, this one. It's like a warm purple shimmery shade, but you'll see like it shifts so beautifully. It has that bronzy quality to it too. Really pretty. But it's like a muted purple eggplanty shade, shimmer shade, but has that shiftiness also happening. Look at that. You see that? So pretty. And that's the last row swatched for you guys. This was the most difficult row for me to swatch actually, like find dupes with. Let me put it on the side so that you can see Nupur swatches too. Really, really pretty. Now, if you are ready, let's move on to creating this eye look. Okay, I'm gonna first start off with this shade from the Lands of Enchantment palette, which is Enlightened. And I'm gonna go all across the crease using that shade. I'm going to apply the same shade on my lower lash line too. I'm gonna take this shade Intimate, this one, and I'm gonna take that on the outer corners and then blend it down with that pastel purple shade. I'm still gonna deepen it out with another shade in the extreme outer corners, but this is gonna be like our crease shade and like a background shade for this eye look. I'm gonna take this shade, this one, Pink Tourmaline, and I'm gonna take that very lightly but in the middle of the eyelid and then sweep it just to get a little bit more of like that orchid purple shade. And I'm gonna take that same shade, Pink Tourmaline, on the lower lash line too. Now for the extreme outer corners, I'm going to take this shade, Chariot, this one, build it right there and melt it with the other shades. And I'm also going to take that on the extreme outer corners of the lower lash line. Okay, I'm going to take this shade, which is Kunzite, and I'm going to first take that on the center of my eyelid, just right there, and melt it with that extreme outer corner shade, that Chariot shade. Take this shade, Captivating, and I'm gonna spray it once just so that it doesn't spread everywhere. And I'm gonna take that in the inner third of the eye and melting it right in the inner corner too. Now because this is a very light and a sparkly shade, it will open up our eye really well. And I'll just sweep it up like that. Now to mesh that lighter shade with that purpley shade, I'm going to take this shade Rich. Just going to take it with my fingers and just pat it right there in the middle. Just right there. That will give a beautiful shift of that purple to a green. Just right there. I'm going to finish off this eye with some liner and mascara. And that's my final look. I finished off my lips with Natasha Denona's Amorosa lipstick, and that's what I have on my lips. I really love how beautiful, romantic, how purple. You know how much I love my purple, so this is a no surprise. This is right up my alley. I absolutely love a purple eyeshadow on me, and I really love this palette. I feel like this palette was curated so very nicely by Deandra and Bella Beaute Bar. I love it, and I will snag it as soon as I can get it, and if it is on a sale, I'll definitely snag it. But that's all for today, guys. If you did like this video, if you like duping the vibes of the palette, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.